Hey, everybody, welcome to another episode of the Lincoln County Podcast, bringing you people local in your community, whether it's business owners, historians, or just everyday people, to talk about what we do in Lincoln County and why we love it. So today, I have a special guest on. I'm going to turn the floor over to him to introduce himself and follow right along.
I'm Andrew, manage Heckler Hardware. The store's been there for 127 years.
127, really?
Yep.
Is that, now would that be the oldest business in Troy, or?
I believe it is.
I kind of wondered that. I knew that I think maybe Troy Furniture's been around over 100 or something, and Funeral Home.
Yeah.
Clint Funeral Home, I believe, has been around. She's coming on the podcast too, but 127 years. Now, I've looked at some of the photos. So when I first moved to Troy and joined like the Troy groups, I joined Historic Downtown. I whatever one I joined, Dan posted, like, would post old black and whites in, and that's like my favorite thing. I don't know why. I follow one in St. Louis too that does it, and he'll post stuff from like where my parents lived, and I'll save them to show them, and they'll be like, "Oh yeah, that's down there where so and so lived in the '60s." So I love that. So 127 years. Has it always been in that building? Was it added on to, or?
It's always been in that building. The original store is as you walk in, and then as businesses went out of business next door, they just cut a hole in the wall.
That's when it extended to the sides.
Just went on, yeah.
Wow, so that'd be crazy. Now, at that point in Troy, and I didn't know this. I don't know if a lot of people know this. I can't remember who told me. We were at a meeting, one of the meetings, we were discussing, probably Tony Mooney probably told me. We were at one of the meetings, we were discussing Troy and how Google, like, so where I live in Bluffview, it always wants to take me down and through Cherry Street and then out past J and then back up to 47. And I was like, it's just really weird. I guess it's shorter, but I don't know why it takes me that way. And someone's like, well, that was the original road. So what do you mean? They're like, well, you went down and then it turned up. And I know Mr. Steen and I had talked about that before he retired from his martial arts school. And I thought that was really interesting because then all of a sudden the town of Troy made more sense to me, like the location of things. So I mean, Heckler Hardware was like that's right there on that block. Like that was a pretty happening spot back then. How did it? Do you know like how it got started there?
No, not really. I know it was built in 1892, I believe, and
That's
then
crazy.
in 1896, Heckler's moved in, and it's been in the same family ever since. So
wow, so
yeah.
The building was pretty new when they moved in. Now some of the pictures in the store, I guess, are kind of the shots of Main Street back then.
Yeah.
That's wild to really think about what Troy was in. I mean, that's a pretty big building then for that time period.
Oh yeah, with the downstairs, the hardware store, and then upstairs used to be apartments.
Yeah.
So.
Yeah, that at one point in time when my martial arts school was in Wentzville, before we moved to Troy, I had looked at a spot in Warrington where it was a business in the bottom and it was a 3,000 square foot apartment upstairs, something like that, because it matched the square footage of the business. And I was like, well, that'd be really neat to live above it. That would be really cool. As a small business owner, that's one of your biggest expenses is you have your rent and you have your house. If everything was in one, it's like, okay, now it makes sense how these people are able to do it so many years ago. So what all do you guys, like, I know I come there to get paint, but you guys kind of have a lot of everything. And then I guess Heckler also has the Hearth and Home across the street. Now that building, was that originally, did Dan tell me it was originally an opera house?
Yes, it was, yep.
Well, it was originally an opera house, then it was an automotive dealer, right?
Yep.
That's the craziest part for people that don't know that it was, and, a dealership, that's what that lift was for, right?
Yep, yeah, the lift is, the turners and stuff, they're all still up there, up in the ceiling.
Yeah.
You can see them as you walk upstairs.
That's crazy.
Yeah.
I thought that was really neat when I went there. I had to ask them, like, what is all this for? And they were telling me that. And that's crazy. That's super cool because I don't think a lot of people in town know that.
Yeah.
I don't think a lot of people would realize it. They just see it and they're like, oh, that's a place that sells fireplaces, not really understanding the history of it or the history of what all of them was. When Mr. Steen and I talked, he talked about his first dojo in town. and heating with oil and carrying the cans of oil upstairs to heat the room so they could do classes. And I thought that was just like the coolest thing ever to have that kind of a history. And I think that's something that's unique to Troy, is that it's not old enough that that history's been lost. There are still people around that carry it and know it, that they're good at it. And I think a lot of the businesses on Main Street have been good about saving that. I mean, Heckler's for one, like looking at the outside of the building, like I was Night of 1,000 Stars, I was teasing somebody. I was like, I like to paint. I like to do a lot of things, but I do not envy the gentleman that paints the front of that building. Who does that?
That's Jim Dye.
Jim Dye. Okay. See, I've seen his work art places. He's damn good, but I do not envy him. I've watched him up there working on those buildings and doing that, and great work. Super cool. Man, I do not envy him. I've had some people ask me to bid some stuff, like some Victorian houses that weren't even that intricate, and I'm like, no, I'm good. That's rough. That's hard work.
Yeah, it is. He's I mean, like you said, he's real good at what he does.
Yeah.
And it takes about, I mean, it feels like forever. I think it's like a month.
I bet it feels like forever to him too. I've watched him up there when I've come through town, and it feels like forever to me, and I'm not doing it. It's amazing though, but it's so cool to keep that heritage live, because at this day and age, everybody wants to paint everything modern and make it look new, and you just can't do that to some of that stuff. So what all do you guys like? How long have you been at Heckler's?
I've been there for probably, I think, 8.5 years.
8.5 years. Wow. And that's something else rare these days, is to find somebody that's been and worked somewhere that long. I feel like every 2 years, employees need to like shed their skin and find a new job. Sometimes my one of my main painters and I have discussed that before. He's like, well, it's 2-year mark, time for half of them to leave and 6 new people to come in. And we chuckle about it because there's no real good reason or rhyme for it. Just people seem to do it. So that's all. That says a lot about them, that you've been there that long.
Yeah, they're really great to work for. And I mean, one of the ladies that retired back in 2019, Lucille Broyles, she worked there for 53 years.
Wow, that's cool. Mm-hmm. That's neat. I talked to someone at a Rotary meeting once that had been at their place of employment like 36. And I remember discussing it with them. I was like, that's really cool to say you were there. I was with the same painting company for 16 years. Like I wasn't one to jump around. I was with Jivy Lube before that for a long time. Like I went, found somewhere that treated you right, you stayed. So that's really cool. Now, did you always grow up in Troy, or?
I did, yeah. Yeah, for the most part. We moved here when I was in like 2nd grade.
Really?
Been here ever since, so.
That's cool. Big changes. You know, like, have you noticed a lot of changes since then? And
oh, yeah. You know, definitely grown a whole lot.
Yeah.
So
it seems like a lot of stuff's growing. It seems like there's always something new going up or a new business coming in these days, even with as much negativity as you'll see about, well, Troy's not growing. You know, that it is. There's a lot going on there. What do you guys like? What all do you? You know, it's a small hometown hardware store, but it's really not that small. With the building behind it, with so much that's going on, there's always a lot of hustle and bustle. I see a lot of local contractors down there. Like, what all do you guys supply and do and work with in town or around town?
In town, I mean, we will take anything anywhere. You know, if it's within city limits, we'll just, you know, you need something ran up the street or something, you know, we'll run it to you. We have everything and anything, really. And if we don't have it, you know, we'll make something work that we have. I think that's what really makes us stand out from the big box stores. You know, if people come in, just say, do you have this? It's not just no.
Yeah.
And that's the end of it. It's no, but, well, let me see if this works, you know?
Yeah. There's some troubleshooting there. There's that personal, too, of the service. Like, I know when I go in, find you're going to help me with the colors, help me consult on the products. And depending on what we need, there's somebody that, I mean, I know somebody walking off the street would see the ladies working there and be like, oh man, who's going to help me today? Man, they know their stuff. Like, it's super helpful. And I'm a big believer in keeping your money local. Like, as much as you can, you got to support local first. And that's something that I always see the hardware store doing. So it's great to then know as a business owner, as a person in the community, that when I support that business by taking them my business, they're doing the same locally as well.
Yeah.
And that feel like a couple guests I've had on, we've discussed how Troy has that small town feel, but Lincoln County's really not that little. You know, you guys, there's days that Main Street's packed. You guys are full. It's crazy. Is there different things that you would say bring in more people, or different days that you're busier?
You know, Mondays are usually like our busiest time. I guess it's, you know, all the contractors getting ready for the week and everything. But generally we're pretty busy 6 days a week. I mean, so that's good. That's good. It's a lot of local contractors, you know, like yourself, and just handymen. They come in the store. So,
well, you guys got such a mix of things. Like when we were doing Night of 1,000 Stars, and we got there and the cabin was a mess. Half the lights didn't work, and I don't smoke, so I didn't have a lighter with me, and we need to light a fire, and there was nothing to do that. And I was like, I'll be right back. And I went over and I got a lighter. I got Christmas lights. I got a broom. I got some rope. I was kind of chuckling on the way back. I'm like, well, hell, that worked out real good. I walked across the street, got every single thing I needed right there. And I don't think people realize they can do that sometimes. I feel like our brains are trained to go to the big box stores. I hate driving into Wentzville with a passion. I will do everything I can to maneuver my schedule around to go to Hackman, to go to Chick, to go to you, to go somewhere local first, if at all possible. I do absolutely my best to not buy stuff online, to keep it local. Now, not saying I do it all the time, because Christmas just came around. I wasn't really going to go anywhere. There's no local stores that really had enough stuff for Christmas. I always try to get my wife something local. But for the kids, you know, Legos are going to come from Walmart. Like, just that simple. So what kind of got you into the paint department over there? Why? Because that seems to be where the majority of your time is.
Yeah, Lucille that I talked about earlier, she was actually running the paint department. And, you know, she was 85 years old.
Wow.
So
and still working?
Oh, yeah.
Good for her. That's awesome. That generation's different.
Yeah, and they said, you know, Lucille needs some help. So I just kind of helped her. She, you know, kind of took me under her wing, and I'll never know as much as she did. But, you know, I'm working at it. So.
Yeah. That's how my martial arts, that's how I got into doing that. My instructor, Vern, was in his 70s, and his daughter was one of our head instructors, was above him, and she came to me and said, hey, Dad needs help at classes. Will you come in? I was like, yeah. She goes, just a couple nights a week. I'm like, nah, if I'm going to come, I'll come every night. And he just started just pouring knowledge into me, and that's kind of where it took off for me too with the martial arts, was having that mentor. I think that's something nowadays that people don't think about, but the older generations, they can teach a lot. There's so much, like you said, you'll never know as much as her. I mean, obviously she worked for 50 years. That's just crazy. That's awesome.
Yeah.
But I mean, who needs a computer when you've got somebody that's worked there 50 years? I bet she could tell you everything. That's amazing.
Yeah, like you were saying, I mean, there's also Valerie. She works there. She's very knowledgeable on plumbing.
Very much.
If you bring in a part that, you know, is old, she knows about it, and she knows what to replace it with. You know, a lot of knowledge in the store there, just amongst everybody who works there, really.
Very much. And that's something that most people I think would underestimate. When you go to a local business like that, that's what you're getting. That's what you're paying for. Yeah, you may go to Walmart and get it cheaper, but you're not going to get that help. Nothing against anyone watching this that works at Walmart, but, you know, I don't ever ask anyone a question. Although there is a really cool dude in the electronics. I love him. If I'm getting headphones or something, he's very, very helpful. But most of the time, everybody's like, I don't know. I know people that work at places. I'll see them and be like, hey, can you help me with this? I don't know where that's at. Oh, drives me absolutely batty, because I know there's someone in corporate that's working really hard to pay that person to just tell me, I don't know. Whereas you go in there, I've walked in, man, I forgot what it was. I brought something and showed her. I'm like, I don't even know what this is. She's like, oh, come here. Getting ready to go to Canada. Had to make a case. So normally we compete with a comma. It's a short weapon that can go in our bags. Told Ben this year you compete with his bow staff. Well, that's 5 foot long. Didn't think about it till the day before we flew out that you have to put because some of them collapse down. This one doesn't. It's a lightweight, so it doesn't have the metal in it. So we had to make a tube to ship it in last minute on, I feel like it was a Saturday afternoon and I was panicking and I'm like, let's go. And brought the bow with me, said, this is what I need. Oh, come here. Here's this. Here's the end caps. Believe actually there was a piece of scrap PVC we found that fit it. You don't get that service at the big places. That's just not what's happening anymore. And those places are not funding that money back in the community like a Heckler's Hardware has for 127 years.
Yes.
That is just crazy. That is so cool. Like when people ask me at goals with business, one of my big things is that one day my great-great-grandkids will be like, yeah, great-great-grandpa started this and he taught my great-grandpa who taught my grandpa. Like I hope all of them follow in that. If not, I hope at some point it's, well, I was like family to them and my great-great-grandpa who really wasn't my grandpa, but I hope there's a lineage carried on there that lasts well beyond my time. And I'm pretty sure that family's very proud of that lineage with that business. So what are your tasks on a normal day up there?
Normal day, just make sure business runs as smooth as possible. Like I said, I'm the manager of it, but I mean, with as good as a crew we have, there's not much to manage.
Yeah.
I pretty much make the hard choices. So
yeah. No, for sure.
Yeah.
One of the things I think is interesting too, that was really funny. So when COVID hit, nobody had paint. I remember on a whim, I'm like, well, I'm going to go up and see what you guys got. And you guys took really good care of me. But I remember walking in there and you had such a mixture of paint. I remember laughing because I didn't want to tell anyone. People were like, you guys are still painting? There were guys I knew that were using eggshell paint to paint ceilings because I hired their employees when they ran out of work because of doing stupid stuff like that, but they couldn't get anything. You had stuff. You had everything. You had stains. You had such a big variety of products. Everything was there. I do, and I'm not just saying this because you're on here, but I remember walking around the corner going, holy crap, I'm not telling anyone. And I remember my guys were like, where are you painting? I'm like, oh, that's got it. Like, I didn't tell people for a little bit because I didn't want other people going up there and buying everything because you had such a mix of stuff that I needed. It was perfect. It worked really well. And I think people forget that with the small stores. It's or local hometown stores, I should say. I don't even like the term small business anymore. But what are some of the different things you guys have back there?
We have, all kinds of plumbing, electrical, paint. We got hardware we got everything down to hand tools, power tools. We got things for screens we got a little bit of lumber now. We also have, a giant warehouse that
Is that the building behind?
Yeah, that's the building behind. We have, we keep, water heaters, toilets.
Oh, okay.
Sand, concrete mix. I mean, it's just, the list goes on and
just
on, really.
On
yeah, we
everything.
also have a sheet metal shop that we do custom sheet metal things or ductwork.
And I had no clue.
Yeah, we sharpen lawnmower blades, scissors, knives. We've been known to cut plexiglass, and someone needed a curio cabinet glass done, but it was bent. The glass, was framed around, so we're like, we've never done that, but we'll give it a try. So I left their curio cabinet with us, and we actually made it out of plexiglass, heated it up a little bit, and gradually bent it, and it actually fit into place.
Wow.
So, yeah.
You're not going to get that at a big store either. That's that customer service. That's something that's so neat about Troy, that, Troy, Winfield, everything in Lincoln County, that you're getting that service. You're dealing with such a majority of small businesses or family, locally owned businesses that it's nice to know when you shop there, it's going back into your own community. When you eat dinner, it's going back into your own community. I won't drive into Wentzville to get food. If we're going to order on a Friday night, it's kind of our night that we'll have a lot going on. It's the end of the week. We'll order out, pick somewhere local. I don't like to go to chain restaurants. I like the fact the money comes back to the community. And that was always one of my big things with trying to support local, is it comes back. And because of that, you have businesses that have been around for 127 years. I mean, that's amazing. I just keep coming back to, I think that's just super cool. I just, like I said, that's a goal of mine to have something that's a staple like that. What do you do other than just work at Heckler's? I mean, I feel like that's all you do because you're always there.
Yeah, I do have customers that come in and say, do you ever take a day off? Well, on Sundays when the stores close. But, I really enjoy what I do. Outside of Heckler, I do woodworking and things. I do small projects, just a hobby. I used to cut grass on the side, but, just keep busy. Anything I can do to help people out, I guess.
What type of stuff do you do with woodworking?
Just anything. People ask me to make something, or I'll do the best I can to make it, I pretty much don't really charge much. I just as long as I pay for supplies, and I'll do it,
Is there anything that you particularly like to do with it?
Not really. I mean, I don't specialize in anything on it. It's just whatever, Made some bow racks for people.
Didn't you make something for your wife?
I did. I made some display cases. I made another display case for my wife for her samurai sword.
That's right. I remember us talking about a case or something that you made.
Yep.
What type of wood did you use? Like, how does that go about? When they say measure twice, cut once, I measure 3 times, cut 5 times, go back up and get a new piece. I'm terrible at that stuff. I need to put baseboards in my house, and I'm going to start tackling it after the first of the year because I know I'm going to go through a lot of scrap, but I got some things I want to try, so I'm going to do it. You see on a lot of the social media, they do those 1x boards as like accents, but then they paint them the wall color. They paint the wall flat, and they'll do gloss on the edge. Dying to do some of those, but I know it's going to, an actual good carpenter, someone that works with wood, be like, oh, yeah, be done. Whereas me, I'm going to screw it up. I'm going to quit 3 times. I'll finish it. It'll look good. It'll have a lot of caulk, a lot of putty, and a lot of paint. But that's something I want to mess with. Like, is there, if you're building a display case like that, is there a particular wood you like to start with?
Not really. I use a lot of pine, soft wood. My biggest project I'm working on is 2 slabs of wood, black walnut, gonna butt them together and make like a bar top table out of them. So, have
you seen that where they take that like rough cuffed slabs and they do the epoxy around it?
Have
you seen some of those? That stuff's neat. I've never clicked on it to see what they charge. I do know the piece of wood's normally pretty pricey. When they were putting all the rough cut beams in the houses for like an actual aged beam, that was really expensive. I don't remember how much. I remember one house we did painted that they had put one between the dining room and the kitchen, and I remember them telling us what they paid for it and us being like, wow, like a couple grand or something ridiculous. Some of that stuff's pretty neat though. I've always liked it.
Yeah, that was my original idea. Making 2 slabs into like a river table.
Mm-hmm. Is that what that's called?
Yeah. So what you'll do is you'll cut down one side of each, flip it over, and then you'll take off all that bark. So that way you still have that natural look. That's how you get the river look. And then you pour the epoxy down the middle. You can fill it with something or make it into a colored dye but once I got going on that and I looked at the price of epoxy and how much it would take, I was like, no.
Does that epoxy get pretty expensive?
Oh, yeah.
Really?
Yeah, because you have to buy a part A and a part B and,
Yeah, we watched something. They did a coffee table or did something, but they put, I want to say they put sharks in it or something and like froze them in there and it poured stuff over it. My kids were driving me nuts because they love to create stuff. We got the shoes, we build Legos, always doing something, and or painting stuff with me at the shop. So they were super adamant about that. And then also with them competing in martial arts, a friend of mine told me that what she does, her daughter competes all over the place, tremendous athlete. They would every year take pieces of all of her awards and break pieces off, things to remember them by, and then they would put them in like an epoxy cube and save them to display because like she competed so much. I had to ask them like, where the hell are you putting all this stuff? Because with Ben and Jocelyn's competing, my garage is almost full. Like that's after first year. It's one of our projects is to redo the garage and display things a little differently because we're out of space for 2024. We have no space left. We've got to build at least 4 more sets of shelves. I want to kind of spread everything out, lay it out a little nicer. But I thought about the epoxy thing. I'm like, well, we could take some of the old stuff, or they've got so many metals. I was like, maybe we could like design a pattern with the metals and epoxy. But I never thought, I always just thought the wood was the expensive part, which I think those slabs get pretty pricey.
Oh, yeah. Yeah.
But you said that the epoxy, huh? And they use a ton of that epoxy when they do those.
They do. And there's no, it's not like paint.
No.
If it messes up, you can
done.
just paint over it. If you pour epoxy over these wood slabs, and say you cast it, and there's a hole in your cast, and it runs out on the floor, that's it. There's no scooping it back up, and so.
Does it ruin? I guess it would almost ruin the wood then if you weren't cautious.
Oh yeah, you'd probably have to sand it all down if you really wanted it.
Yeah. You'd have to. Yeah, there'd be tons of elbow grease in that, huh? Just fixing that boo-boo.
Yeah.
Wow. That would be insane. I can't imagine that like that. You watch all the reels, and I think it's a thing these days. Like everybody sees these social media reels, whether it's painting, auto mechanics, martial arts, gymnastics, making tables. You don't really see the whole picture. That would be a real problem. I mean, if you got a piece of wood, wow, the cost. As a business owner, I could just imagine that. Like with painting, it's easy. We can just repaint it. I don't like the color. It can be repainted. Sand it down, repaint it. It's not a big deal. Even if it's stained wrong, we had a handrail that the customer didn't really like it, so we were able to sand it, strip it, sand it all down. It sucked. It was brutal. It took forever, but it was easily fixable. It wasn't anything that was too crazy hard. What do you building things like that out of wood with what you do at the store and kind of deal with? Do you have any other hobbies or anything else that kind of comes to mind that you like to do, or,
I mean,
you said you cut grass. You kind of did that for a little bit.
Yeah, I did that for a little bit. I'd hunt and fish and
Did you get out and do any hunting this year?
No, unfortunately, I had shoulder surgery.
That's
so
right.
I couldn't do any of that, so maybe next year.
Yeah, I was going to say that's there's a lot of tournaments in November, and there's always a couple that fall in or around deer season, and I have to remind people that my school's in Lincoln County. I'm probably not making it if it's around deer season. Just FYI, there was one that was always on opening day, and the guy would get, man, aren't you going to bring a team up? I'm like, no, they're all hunting. Well, you got a lot of girls on your team. Yes, they're hunting with their fathers, like they're hunting, or with their moms. I had several moms take or something. Like it's different. I've never hunted. I know nothing about it. It's not like a moral thing. I just never have. But I do know some people live and die for it. My kids were having that discussion with me the other day. They're like, they were going to leave the event and go hunting some more. And I'm like, yeah, some people do that. Why don't we? I'm like, because I don't know how. Well, you got the gun for it. Yeah, I do. But we're not hunting. I don't do that. I just don't. And they were like, oh, okay. It's like, some of your friends do it. I was like, do all your friends do martial arts? Well, no. I was like, see, we do that. They do that. Some people do both. We don't.
Part of living in a small town, huh?
Yeah. What's your favorite thing to hunt if you do?
Deer.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Normally have pretty good luck, or
I think I just enjoy, even if I don't get anything, I just enjoy being out there.
I've talked to a lot of people that said that. They just like it.
Yeah, just relaxing.
See, I couldn't. That's the other reason I couldn't hunt. That whole just get up early, go sit in the field in the cold. It's like, no, I'm good. Yeah. I couldn't. I've had friends like, oh, let me take you with you. It's like, dude, I'll talk to you the whole time. I'll run the deer off. It's not going to happen. I was like, I'm not going to lie. My daughter, when she was asking me about it the other day, I'm like, you're me. You're not going to sit here for that, sweetie. Like, you could say you want to, but none of us sit well. It's not going to happen.
You're
Do you
too
bow
busy.
hunt? Yeah, I can't. I wouldn't ever schedule time to just go do that. I mean, if food were to get scarce enough, I'd have to learn, but that's just not me. Do you ever bow hunt or anything?
Yeah. I recently got into bow hunting a couple of years ago. So.
What do you think of that?
It's fun. It's definitely more of a challenge than gun hunting. So, a deer can be 40, 50 yards away with a gun, no problem. But with the bow, you got to be within pretty close range to get a good enough shot.
I always thought that'd be interesting with the martial arts background, the weaponry with the bow. I've always found that interesting. But I do understand that it's like anything. It's a massively learned skill. that would be ridiculously hard. Not going to be like, oh yeah, I could pick up a bow and, just go shoot something. I mean, I get it. There's a lot more to it. That would be a crazy cool skill though. And I think it's really taken off. I mean, when you got guys on podcasts like Joe Rogan or something talking about it, everything, I bet all he's got to do is mention a brand and they sell like 1 million of them that day. It's probably ridiculous. Like seriously, if you own a product and Joe Rogan talks about it on his podcast, you start probably picking out which Lamborghini you want to order that minute. Be like, oh, I have now Lamborghini money. Let's do that. Which is crazy. It's kind of what's so interesting about today's day and age with the podcasting. Like what we're doing here, we're just sitting talking. It's a podcast, but it's so popular. And that was kind of the goal of this one, is to bring people on, talk to them about what's going on locally, meet people locally. It doesn't have to be a business owner. It can be someone like yourself that manages a business, working with the oldest businesses in town that everyone knows. Well, now people can put a story and a face with the name, and they know who to talk to. We've got some people coming on that are historians or different things. A friend of mine has done all these crazy Ironman and all these marathons. I'm going to have her on to talk. Can't wait to hear all the stories. I think that's what's going to be really cool about this, is it's going to be a place where people can really learn about our community, not just a name like they would off a Google listing.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah. I think you'll really enjoy talking to the historians and stuff, especially of the town and everything. And
yeah, I'm excited for that one. David Norman, he's one of our aldermen. He's going to bring a lady on, and he's told me her name 5 times, but one of the side effects to being in martial arts my whole life is getting hit in the head. Kind of messes up your memory. Then the paint fumes from being a painter, so I forget stuff. But he had told me about a couple people that need to come on. He's going to bring some on, and I'm super excited for that, just to hear about the history and to learn more about where we live. I think so many people forget that, that we do have local hardware stores. We have so many local businesses and small mom and pop things that other communities don't get. If you go into a Chesterfield, you're not going to see that. They may be a locally owned franchise, but you don't see as many the people hustling to make ends meet off a local business, rubbing 2 dimes together to get something out of it that you see here.
Right. The one of the things is the younger generation. We'll have younger people come in that, oh man, I've lived here my whole life. I never even knew you guys had all this stuff in here, and that's what I hope to bring is, people might see this or, and then they know.
Well, and that's what I want too from it, is that people learn and Joey taught me a great thing. People buy from people. People are going to support businesses that they know the people. Well, you don't get to know them just off their social media or their Google listing. You get to know them by going in and interacting with them. I've always hated, it's turned out to be a blessing. I hate to talk on the phone with a passion. I've gotten much better about it as an adult, but I hated when my friends called, like, stop by, don't call me. Friends that call, what? Come over. Oh man, I'm just up. Come over. Well, but okay, I'll come over. Where are you at? Your mom's? Okay, I'll be over there. Like, I just drive over. My dad be like, where are you going? I'm like, go talk to Stu. Why? Because I don't want to talk on the phone. Luckily, my friend Stu, it was a bad example because he didn't like talk on the phone either. He would have been the same way. Be like, just come over. Why are you calling me on this contraption? So by doing that, I always go in and deal with everyone. Like, I'll drive up there to ask you stuff. Very rarely do I call you for things. I'll drive up there. Because of that, I meet so many business owners, but it's more of a transactional period sometimes, or people that work in businesses. You don't really get to know them. So that's kind of been my goal with this, is to sit down and really learn about people and put a face with it, put a story with it. So you're like, oh, okay, cool. They've been around 120. I'm gonna go up there and check it out. Even if someone hears this, it just comes in Heckler's to see what an old building like that. I love the fact you walk in, the floor squeaks, because it's such an old building. Like, what was it, Jocelyn? I had a discussion the other day. Sometimes my kids don't realize, like, what a unique upbringing they have in Troy. Like, we go to the local hardware store, they get a lollipop and to play with a cat. You guys all know me by name. Like, not everybody's growing up with that, walking into a local store where everybody knows them. Like in 2023, going to be 2024 soon.
Oh, exactly.
Not, running up and down Main Street with some of the local events that all the businesses on Main Street support. Most people will never understand what that's like. Like the older generations do, but the 2023, most people don't understand that. They don't see that. They don't realize that the Heckler Hardwares of this world have kept Main Street alive and keep it growing by, Dan, having the different businesses on that street keeps that area thriving. If those businesses were run down and closed, that Main Street would be dead. I mean, granted, there's other business, not taken away from anyone else that's on Main Street, but that's a big chunk of Main Street right there.
Oh, yeah.
Because that's those two buildings right across from each other, because that's, right there.
Yep.
Then you've got some, you don't really have much past it, but going up the other way, they're smaller. It's not as big of a chunk. So that's literally keeping Main Street alive. And that's something that our communities all need. And I think it's so unique with that. As far as like painting, because I've always used you guys for paint, is there any kind of experiences with paint or painting or just anything that you've come across in a store that's unique, things that are, that really make you guys stand out different from the Lowe's of the world?
Right. Really what sets us apart, like we said before, is the customer service that people get, and just the fact that you can go in there and buy one wood screw if you wanted, or one bolt, and what's crazy is like we had gloves like that you'd get for people would use for like staining or something.
Mm-hmm.
We used to sell those individually. We had a price per glove, and if we have enough people that want that stuff, we just, all right, let's take the price of the package and divide it about how many gloves are in here, and we sell them individually. It's not that big of a deal. But
you guys do that with your N95s.
We did,
the mask.
With the mask. Yep. And we also have batteries. You can buy one battery at a time. It's kind of funny. I think last Christmas we had someone come in and they're like, "Oh, I need a AA battery for this." They're like, "But I know I got to buy a whole pack." We're like, "Oh, no, we can sell them individually." And they laughed. And they're like, "I think this is the only place I've ever been where you can buy batteries."
Yeah, I've never heard of that. That's great. That's cool. I just learned something new. That's neat that you guys do that. Yeah. Because I knew the mask and stuff, but I never would have thought about the batteries. That's yeah, I've never seen that. You always got to buy a 20-pack for $50 friggin' to get a battery for your remote. It's stupid.
Right. Or selling nails and screws by the pound. It's just stuff like that, we just don't see anymore.
No, it's a dying art. One of the things that I noticed too is hand grind keys.
Yes.
You guys hand grind the keys, which when back in the day I would always go to True Value in O'Fallon, because that's where I grew up, and there was a guy that had the machine. He would grind me my keys because I had a 72 Volkswagen Super Beetle. It had a double-sided key for the deck lid. Maybe for the door too, but I remember the deck lid key. I put a new one on it. I put a locking one on the back because I parked outside. My dad was worried about somebody putting something in the motor, messing with it, and it had a double-sided key. Well, the automatic machines couldn't do that, so I had to go down there, and a guy down there would customer, and his keys were always better than when you went to a machine. I've had you guys make several keys for me. They always work great. That's never an issue. Where you do run across that a lot of places, though, it's all machines. The customer service aspect isn't there. I've come in with colors or questions on paint that you were able to figure out that the kid at Lowe's would be like, "Oh, whatever, it is what it is." And I think that's what really separates the small businesses apart.
Oh, yeah. Yeah, and we also rekey doorknobs, too, so...
One young man was doing that the other day when I was in there. Customers calling him with a question. I was really impressed. What's the so there's you, there's
Josiah.
I was going to say it wrong. What's the other gentleman? Younger guy. Ian was amazing on the phone with that person. I was really impressed. Standing there as a business owner and someone that works with youth, like I'm always watching for that stuff. So it was really cool. I was eavesdropping because we were trying to figure that color out. Mm-hmm. And I was eavesdropping on him dealing with the customer and how comfortable and natural he was with it. I was really impressed by that. It's like, that's cool. That kid's got a future in whatever he does. of working with people because it was so natural, so comfortable. And he was, oh, yeah, sure. What can I help you with? Whereas I don't know how old he is, but I know most people around his age, from what he looked, they wouldn't be able to deal with it. That was great.
Right. Oh, yeah. Yeah, they both, you wouldn't have thought that whenever he first started. He was a little shy, but he's actually come out of his shell a lot. But, yeah. Like I said before, we have just a real good crew there.
Yeah.
It's kind of crazy. When I first started there, I was the youngest one there. Everybody else was, I think the next youngest was like, I don't know, probably 50s.
Wow.
Yeah. So
they were as old as the store.
Right. And then, now to have a crew full of young people, I think Dan is really happy for that. It makes him see that, his store can keep going.
Yes. As a business owner, you want to see that. That's going to show you that growth and show you that it's going to still be around later. Some people aren't in it for that. I've got friends that have businesses that plan to sell them when they get retirement age. They have no intent on passing them on. It's different for me. I don't, martial arts school, I'd like my teachings to pass on. I'm not so concerned about the physical business. I would love for it to stay open, but I do know it's a passion thing for me. And if my children don't pursue that, okay. But I do want them to be self-employed and make a difference. That for me would be succeeding hugely. That would be a big deal for me, knowing that they went on to pursue their passions, and that because of what I learned, I was able to teach them that and show them how to do that and educate them in it. But for a business that's been around that long, that's got to be really important, Dan, that, okay, there are generations coming up that are going to keep this alive. Like that's just something, like, I could see it being a very sad day saying, hey, this is going to close. Like, that's not something anyone ever wants to hear, but especially a business that has that much history in the community.
Yeah. And I think that, not just staying alive, paying the bills, but thriving. I mean, the amount of time and money that's been invested, I think is really good. It really sets everything up for the future.
Well, yeah, if it wasn't thriving and doing well and being supported by the community, it wouldn't be there. Exactly. And that's what's great. But that's that. So post-COVID, Taekwondo school is exploding. I had people like lines out the doors, and I'm not making this up. We signed up 90 students in 44 days. Craziness. I didn't know what to do with everybody. I didn't know what to do. Everybody's like, you need a bigger place, you need this, you need that. And we grew, and we just kept growing. And I had all these different organizations we're a part of, channels, networks, whatever you want to call them, reaching out from around the U.S. They're like, hey, what's going on in Lincoln County? Like, what? Well, they were calling going, what's going on in Troy? I said, what do you mean? They're like, well, your school's blowing up. It's doing so good. There's a lot of businesses all over the U.S. closing, especially martial arts schools. What are you doing different? I was like, well, first of all, because one guy was like, we've looked at the demographics. Well, the Troy demographics are very different from Lincoln County. Like, Lincoln County is so much larger. I was like, you got to look at what they do. I said, but we support each other here. During COVID, we supported each other. We worked with the local businesses. We made sure I remember one business was, I had a friend of mine put out the phone call that they hadn't sold any pizzas that day. So I went down and bought 14 pizzas. I said, I want to buy 14 pizzas, but I want to buy half bakes. And the manager's like, we don't do that. And you hear the owner grab the phone. Whoa, what was that you'd like? I was like, I want pizzas, but I don't want them baked all the way so I can bake them later. I'm not giving these out. I'm going to keep them to eat. I gained like 12 pounds during COVID because of that. Sure, we'll make the pizzas. Now, the manager was starting to hang up on me, and I was going to call back and demand the owner because I was like, somebody's going to be really pissed today that you didn't accept this. But our whole community did that. When everything was over, they went to the businesses that supported. And they've kept those businesses alive. And I wrote an article that got published on one of the pages about it. I was like, we supported each other before this. We decided when COVID hit to really knuckle down and support. And the people in this town that wanted things to happen came out and made them happen. We worked. We celebrated each other. We bought from each other. I bought bag racks for the school that I could have spent that $2,000 somewhere else, but found a machine shop in town to make them for me. They'll be coming on the podcast. They're good friends. That's so important. That's something our community does that a lot of others don't do.
Oh, yeah. Yeah. I think, like you said before, there's a lot in Troy that, just people are just aware of. I mean, Yeah, like you said, like a machine shop. Not a whole lot of people think about calling a machine shop to have things made up, but
Yeah.
especially with working in the hardware store, you get to know all these people, and like you said, put a face to the business that they own.
Yep.
And it's just really cool.
I think that's what's going to be big about this. Like, so Swafford, they made me one of these heavy bag racks. You can buy them, you can order them. I knew shipping was going to be insane. But I wanted to, and I took him, I called him, I painted his house. I was like, hey, you think you can make me these? He's like, I don't make anything like that. Well, he got to look at the diagrams and breaking it all down, and he actually didn't care for the grade of steel. I'll tell you what, that building will blow down before that rack goes anywhere. He made that thing out of a heavier steel. The welds on it are bulletproof. I had another Clem Welding came out and welded pipes in between them for us to hang stuff on and to help support them because they were so big and heavy, they were actually breaking the concrete. And I was like, oh, man, Harold Cannon's going to kill me for busting his floor up. So we welded them all together, and I mean, they're not going anywhere. That whole plaza could blow down, and my bag racks will still be hanging.
That's awesome.
I would not have got that service from the bag company. They would have been like, okay, once these bag racks, they would have sent me the flimsy shit, and I wouldn't have been happy with it. The stuff he sent me was great. Now, I had to sand them, prime them, paint them. Cool, I actually kind of do that, so it's not a big deal. And they've held up great, but that's what people forget about supporting local. There is so much we can do locally if they open their eyes. But they want to complain. Oh, this one wasn't open on this day. Great. These are people in your community that have families. They're not there today. They are opening late. You know what? Oh, they closed early on a Wednesday. Great. Kids are out of school. They're supporting their family. Go on Thursday. It's not going to kill you. People are so accustomed to Amazon, they expect that same stuff out of the rest of us, and that's not how local is. Sometimes you got to pay more. Ordered something the other day from a friend. Took them a little while to get it to me, some stickers. And Country State of Mind Designs, Lisa. And I went up to get it. She's like, hey, sorry it was late. Somebody forgot to call you. We're going to take, 10%, 20% off. I was like, absolutely not. I told the lady ringing me out. I'm like, no. I was not in a hurry for these. They look great. I do not want a discount. I do not buy stuff from my friends' businesses for a discount. I do it to support local, and I know I'm going to get a good product from a company. She just donated a bunch of Christmas presents and helped a bunch of families out. We partnered with her on it and bought a few things. I know that's where my money's going to, so that's what I want. That's what I want to support. And I think if more people did that in their own communities, Troy's great about it. I think if more people did it in their own communities, it'd be better. Oh, yeah. I get really wound up over we need an Applebee's, we need a Texas Roadhouse. Until every restaurant in town is so busy you can't get in them, shut up. Because there's plenty of places to eat. You can walk in them all the time. Sometimes there is a little bit of wait. Great. Those people live in your town. Support their business. Wait a little longer to eat. Be patient. Because that money is going right back into your community, helping people in your community that then in return help those in need in your community. Applebee's ain't going to do that. But people forget that, that stupid post a little while back claiming we were getting a Lowe's behind Casey's gas station. I was like, I don't have to go to Wentzville on a Sunday. I was like, but I hate to see it come in for a local business because I knew that would hurt local businesses. So I'm glad it didn't happen. I'm glad that was a prank. I don't know what the hell's going in there. I don't know. Have you seen what's going in there?
No, but the Lowe's thing, we've heard that for years now.
Yeah, well, there was a fake page made for it.
Oh,
Did you know that?
No,
yeah. A couple weeks ago, somebody posted a fake Lowe's store, something, Troy, Missouri. It was pretty believable.
Oh, wow.
Yeah, and posted it in one of the groups. I think there's some people around town just get bored and mess with everybody in those groups.
Yeah.
And I find the urge to do it sometimes. And I don't. When the whole DMV thing was going on, I was when everybody was just over and over and beating that horse to death about where's the DMV? When's so? Justin Chester and I were joking around with Julie Rogers. I was going to post in there, been like, man, the new DMV is friggin' amazing. Love it. Great customer service. Everything was wonderful today. And then I was just going to leave it. I wasn't going to post where it was, when it was, because they were driving her nuts. And Justin's like, man, I would have jumped on it, been like, that was wonderful, greatest experience ever. And then me and him were going to just turn our phones off and leave. And Julie's like, I will personally hang both of you by your toenails. We were at a ribbon cutting and for Friendship Farms, and we were torturing her in the parking lot because she was just fighting with people daily over the questions on it. And I was like, I was going to do it. And he's like, I'd have jumped in on it. And everybody around us was like, oh, I'd have gotten in on that too. And she's like, I would have hunted each of you down. Oh, she was mad. She was getting wound up in the parking lot. We were having so much fun messing with her because all of us are the same type of shit disturbing mentality that we would have all ran with it. It was actually his post the other day about a truck for sale, and everybody was teasing him about, it needs about $2,000 worth of work, and was just screwing up his post. I was gonna be like, man, that's a good looking $500 truck. And I just was like, I got too much to do today. I can't play with people. So, but man, it was great having you on today. I appreciate it. I'm glad you came on to talk about the hardware store and the history of it and what you do. And, everybody gets a chance now to meet you and know who you are. And hopefully this podcast is going to get huge and have 100,000 views on every episode. And we're going to be able to help get that word out there for everyone in town. That's truly the hope. I'm loving talking to people, but I hope it does on the backside do that. So, thank you guys for tuning in today, checking out the Lincoln County podcast. Andrew here from Heckler's bringing us some great information. I hope you guys like and share, tell your friends about it, and let us get the word out about all the great people and things in Lincoln County.